Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was trained by Niko Tokita for 10 years and he encouraged Deku to not take crap from anyone and defend himself if he get attacked, and Deku received one for all at age 14 from All Might and got accepted into UA High. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. Part 1, The Weakest Link. The world was not fair. Izuku Midoriya learned this truth at the age of 4, face down in the dirt, the taste of iron and ash in his mouth. The summer sun beat down on the local park in Yuzurifu, turning the sand in the playground into a scorching griddle. The cicadas screamed in the trees, a deafening chorus that masked the sound of sobbing. "You really are useless, aren't you, Deku?" The voice was young, but it already carried the jagged edge of superiority. Katsuki Bakugo stood over the fallen boy, his palms popping with small, starburst explosions. Smoke curled from his hands, smelling of burnt sugar and danger. Behind him, 2 lackeys snickered, their shadows stretching long over Izuku's trembling form. Izuku pushed himself up on scraped elbows. His eyes, wide and green, were swimming with tears. He looked at the boy standing in front of the shivering child Izuku had tried to protect. "Keikaku, stop," Izuku stammered, his voice thick with mucus and fear. "He's crying, you're hurting him." "So?" Katsuki smirked, slamming a fist into his open palm. "Pop. The weak get crushed. That's how the world works. And you? You're quirkless. You're less than weak. You're nothing." Izuku stood up, his knees shaking so hard they knocked together. He raised his fists in a crude, terrified imitation of a fighting stance. "I won't let you!" Katsuki's grin widened. It was a predator's smile. "Then die." He lunged. It should have been a massacre. It usually was. Izuku braced for the heat, the impact, the inevitable bruise that would take a week to fade. But the impact never came. A shadow fell over them. It wasn't a cloud. It was a man. He appeared as if he had simply materialized from the heat haze. He wore a ragged, wine-red cloak over a plain gi, his hair a messy mop of unkempt brown. He stood between Katsuki and Izuku, one hand casually in his pocket, the other holding a lit cigarette. Katsuki skidded to a halt, his instincts screaming at him. The man didn't look like a hero. He didn't look like a villain. He looked like trouble. "Hey," the man said. His voice was deep, scratching with a nonchalance that felt heavier than gravity. "You brats are being loud. I'm trying to nap over there." "Get lost, old man," Katsuki barked, though his confidence wavered slightly. "This doesn't concern you. I'm teaching this loser a lesson." The man looked down. He ignored Katsuki entirely and looked at Izuku. He studied the tears, the trembling legs, the desperate, hopeless stance. "You," the stranger said, pointing the cigarette at Izuku. "Why are you crying?" Izuku sniffled, wiping his nose on his sleeve. Because I'm scared." "Fair enough," the man shrugged. "Why are you standing there like a scarecrow if you're scared? Why don't you run?" "Because..." Izuku looked back at the crying child behind him. "Because he needs help. Heroes don't run." The man's eyes narrowed. He took a long drag of his cigarette, exhaling a plume of gray smoke that drifted into Katsuki's face. Katsuki coughed, waving his hands. "Hero, huh?" the man muttered. He turned to Katsuki. "And you? Explosion kid. You think beating on a quirkless kid makes you strong?" "I am strong!" Katsuki yelled, sparks flying. "I'm going to be the #1 hero." "Is that so?" The man moved. It wasn't a speed quirk. It was just movement. One moment he was standing still, the next he was right in front of Katsuki. He flicked Katsuki's forehead. Thwack. It wasn't hard, but the precision was absolute. Katsuki stumbled back, clutching his forehead, eyes watering. The sheer shock of being touched so casually froze him. "You're full of openings," the man drawled. "Go home. Before I get annoyed." There was something in the man's eyes, a dark, swirling void that promised violence far beyond anything a 4-year-old could comprehend. Katsuki, for the first time in his life, felt the icy grip of true fear. He scowled, spat on the ground, and turned around. "Let's go," Katsuki muttered to his lackeys. This guy's a bum. They ran. Izuku stood frozen. The other child he had saved scrambled away, murmuring a thank you before bolting. Izuku was left alone with the stranger. Thank you, Izuku whispered. The man sighed, scratching the stubble on his chin. He looked down at Izuku with a mix of pity and calculation. Kid. You said you're quirkless? Izuku flinched. The word felt like a curse. Yes. And you want to be a hero? Yes, Izuku said, his voice gaining a tiny fraction of steel. All Might. I want to be like him. I want to save people with a smile. The man crouched down so he was eye level with Izuku. Up close, he smelled of tobacco, earth, and old blood. Listen to me, kid. Smiling is fine. But crying? Crying doesn't stop the pain. Crying doesn't save anyone. If you want to save people, you need power. But I don't have a quirk. Izuku wailed, the dam breaking again. I can't do anything, the man smirked. It wasn't a kind smile, but it wasn't cruel either. It was challenging. Who said you need a quirk to have power? The man stood up, stretching his back. My name is Niko Tokita. And if you're sick of being a victim, meet me at the trailhead of the municipal forest tomorrow at dawn. Niko started walking away. Wait! Izuku shouted. Can you make me strong? Even without a quirk? Niko didn't look back. He just raised a hand. That depends on how badly you want it. And how much pain you can take. Part 2, The 4 Katas. The next 10 years were not a montage of fun. They were a systematic deconstruction and reconstruction of Izuku Midoriya. The municipal forest became his home, his church, and his torture chamber. Niko Tokita was not a gentle teacher. He didn't offer praise. He didn't offer comfort. He offered reality. Year 1 to 2, the foundation. Your body is weak, Niko said on the first day. Izuku was panting, having just run up the mountain trail. Your bones are brittle. Your muscles are non-existent. A quirkless hero? Don't make me laugh. If a villain hits you, you'll turn into paste. The first 2 years were solely physical conditioning. Izuku didn't learn a single punch. He ran until his lungs burned like fire. He carried logs up slippery slopes. He held planks while Niko sat on his back reading cheap magazines. Eat, Niko commanded, tossing a rabbit he'd caught and cooked over a fire. I have dinner at home, 6-year-old Izuku said timidly. Protein, Niko grunted. Your muscles need fuel. The body is an engine. If you put trash in, you get trash performance. Eat. Izuku ate. He grew. The baby fat melted away, replaced by wiry, dense cords of muscle. He stopped stuttering when he spoke to Niko, mostly because he was too exhausted to waste breath on unnecessary syllables. Year 3 to 5, the adamantine kata. At age 7, the hitting began. The adamantine kata, Niko explained, tapping Izuku's chest. It involves tightening the muscles to the point of steel. It is used for both offense and defense. Like a shield? Izuku asked, pen poised over a notebook Niko had forbidden him from bringing, but tolerated anyway. Better than a shield. A shield can be taken away. Your body is yours. Niko taught him indestructible. Tighten everything, Niko barked. He poked Izuku in the stomach with a stick. Izuku yelped. Again. Poke. Again. Whack. Eventually, the stick broke. Izuku didn't flinch. His muscles instantly clamped down at the moment of impact, dispersing the force. Good, Niko said. Now punch that rock. What? Punch. The rock. Izuku punched. His knuckles bled. He cried. Niko watched him passively. Your fist is soft. Use iron breaker. Tighten the muscles upon impact. Transfer the kinetic energy. Don't push the rock, destroy it. It took 6 months before Izuku cracked the stone. It took another year before he could pulverize it. By age 9, Izuku's hands were calloused and scarred, his knuckles flattened pads of calcium and grit. Year 6 to 7, the flame kata. You're strong now, Niko noted, watching a 10-year-old Izuku do handstand push-ups on one finger. But you're slow. A tank is useless if it can't hit the target. The flame kata was about footwork. Positioning. Niko drew circles in the dirt. Move. Don't think. If you think you die, they trained on loose gravel, on slippery moss, on tree branches. Niko threw stones at him, fastballs that whistled through the air. Dodge, Niko said. Thwack. A rock hit Izuku's shoulder. Too slow. Use flash fire. Create a rhythm. Confuse the eye. Izuku learned to move not just his legs, but his center of gravity. He learned to oscillate his movement to create afterimages. He learned phantom pace. One afternoon, Niko threw a barrage of 10 stones. Izuku weaved. He didn't just dodge, he flowed around them like smoke. He appeared behind Niko, panting. Niko smirked. Not bad. You're starting to look less like a victim. Year 8 to 9, the redirection and water katas. These were the hardest. Power is finite, Niko lectured, sitting by a stream. No matter how strong you get, there will always be someone stronger. A quirk that enhances strength. A mutant type bigger than a building. If you try to match them force for force, you lose. So what do I do? Izuku asked. He was 12 now. His jawline had sharpened. His eyes were intense, analytical. You don't fight their power. You steal it. The redirection kata. Niko stood up. Try to tackle me. Use Iron Breaker. Izuku charged. He was fast now, and strong. He put his weight behind a shoulder check that could crack concrete. Niko barely moved. He placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder, guided his arm, and suddenly Izuku was flying. The world spun. He slammed into the ground with the force of his own charge magnified. Flow of power, Niko said. Visualize the energy. Don't stop it. Guide it. Weeping Willow. For a year, Izuku spent his time being thrown into the dirt. He learned to feel the vector of force. He learned that the harder an opponent swung, the harder they would fall. Then came the water kata. Grappling. Flexibility. Be fluid, Niko said, putting Izuku in a chokehold. Water cannot be broken. It fills the cracks. Izuku learned Bind of Pisces. He learned to dislocate his joints to escape holds and pop them back in. He learned to fight on the ground, where quirks often mattered less than leverage. Year 10, Integration. Izuku was 14. He stood in the clearing of the forest, shirtless, scars tracing his arms and back. He wasn't bulky like a bodybuilder. He was compact, dense, like a coiled spring. Come at me, Niko said. For real this time. Izuku didn't hesitate. He launched forward with flash fire, leaving a blur. Niko struck out. Izuku used redirection to parry the blow, spinning inside Niko's guard. He drove a fist into Niko's solar plexus with Iron Breaker. Niko blocked it with his own indestructible, the sound like a hammer hitting an anvil. But Izuku didn't stop. He transitioned into water kata, wrapping his legs around Niko's arm, trying to transition into an armbar. Niko laughed, a rare, barking sound, and spun, throwing Izuku off. Izuku landed on his feet, skidding back, eyes locked on his master. Enough, Niko said. Izuku straightened up, wiping sweat from his brow. Did I do it? Niko lit a cigarette. He looked at the boy he had found crying in a sandbox 10 years ago. The crybaby was dead. In his place stood a fighter. A pragmatist. A warrior. You're not helpless anymore, Izuku, Niko said quietly. I still don't have a quirk, Izuku replied, looking at his scarred hands. And? Niko raised an eyebrow. Does that matter? Izuku clenched his fist. The sensation of power, pure, kinetic, biological power, hummed through his veins. No. It doesn't. Good. Niko turned and walked toward the tree line. The entrance exam for UA is in 10 months. I've taught you everything the Niko style has to offer. The rest is up to you. Wait, Niko. Izuku stepped forward. Where are you going? Niko paused. He didn't look back. I've stayed in one place too long. Ghosts tend to catch up if you stop moving. You don't need a babysitter anymore. You're the tiger's vessel now, or something like that. Just don't die. And then, he was gone. Izuku stood alone in the forest. But for the first time in his life, the silence wasn't lonely. It was peaceful. Part 3. The Ghost in the Classroom. Aldera Junior High was a loud, chaotic ecosystem of teenagers discovering their quirks and hierarchies. In this ecosystem, Izuku Midoriya had always been the bottom feeder. The pebble by the side of the road, or so they thought. It was the spring of their final year. The teacher slammed a stack of papers onto the podium. You're all third years now, the teacher announced, bored. It's time to think seriously about your future. But, he grabbed the papers and threw them into the air. I know you all want to be heroes, the class erupted. Quirks flashed everywhere, extended fingers, minor telekinesis, floating objects. Yes, you have wonderful quirks, the teacher said. But no power usage in school. Settle down. Teach. A voice cut through the noise like a whip crack. Katsuki Bakugo leaned back in his chair, feet on the desk. Don't lump me in with these extras. I'm the real deal. I'm going to UA High, the class gasped. UA? The national school? That's impossible to get into. I aced the mock exams. Katsuki smirked, small explosions popping in his palms. I'm going to surpass All Might and become the richest, most famous hero of all time. Oh, the teacher checked his list. Speaking of UA. Midoriya, you applied too, didn't you? Silence. Absolute, heavy silence descended on the room. Every head turned to the back corner. Izuku sat there. He was sketching in a notebook titled Hero Analysis for the Future, number 13. But unlike his old sketches, these were anatomical diagrams. Force vectors. Weak points on mutant-type quirks. At the sound of his name, Izuku looked up. His eyes were dull, tired, but terrifyingly calm. Ha! Katsuki froze. His shoulders began to shake. DKU. Katsuki slammed his hands on his desk, an explosion rocking the room. You damn nerd! You're quirkless. You think you can rub shoulders with me? The class began to laugh. Midoriya? No way. He can't even kill a bug. Good grades alone won't get you into the hero course. Izuku didn't flinch. He didn't stutter. He didn't shrink into his collar. He calmly closed his notebook. The thud was soft, but somehow it echoed. They got rid of the rule that requires a quirk, Izuku said. His voice was steady, lacking the frantic pitch of his childhood. It's an open exam. If I pass, I pass. If you pass? Katsuki kicked his chair away and stomped toward Izuku. Smoke poured from his hands. You're mocking me. You think you're better than me? Katsuki stood right in front of Izuku's desk. He loomed over him, teeth bared. You're a pebble, Deku. A stepping stone. And stepping stones don't get to look up. Izuku looked up. He didn't glare. He just looked. His green eyes traced the line of Katsuki's stance. Right foot forward. Weight shifted to toes. Shoulders tense. Telegraphing a right hook. I'm not looking down on you, Katsuki, Izuku said quietly. I'm just looking ahead. Don't you dare ignore me. Katsuki raised a hand, sparks flying. I'll blow that face off. The teacher didn't intervene. He never did. Katsuki slammed his explosive palm down toward Izuku's shoulder, intending to burn the uniform and scare the life out of him. Izuku moved. It wasn't a hero move. It wasn't a frantic dodge. As Katsuki's hand descended, Izuku's left hand shot up. He didn't block. He caught Katsuki's wrist, the redirection kata, flowing edge. With a subtle twist of his hips and a precise rotation of his wrist, Izuku redirected the downward force of the explosion. He guided Katsuki's arm to the side, causing the explosion to detonate harmlessly against the air, and used the momentum to pull Katsuki off balance. Thump! Katsuki stumbled forward, his face smashing into Izuku's desk. The silence in the room changed. It wasn't the silence of awkwardness anymore. It was the silence of shock. Izuku hadn't stood up. He was still sitting, one hand holding Katsuki's wrist, pinning the explosive boy's face to the wood. Get off my desk, Izuku said. Katsuki's brain short-circuited. He scrambled back, ripping his arm free. His face was red, partly from the impact, mostly from humiliation. You! Katsuki's voice trembled. You bastard! You have a quirk? You've been hiding it? No quirk, Izuku said, picking up his pencil. Just physics. And you were sloppy. You telegraph your right hook every time you get angry. I'll kill you! Katsuki screamed. He pulled back both arms, explosions crackling, ready to unleash a blast that would wreck the room. Izuku stood up. He didn't take a fighting stance. He just stood. But the air around him changed. He engaged the adamantine kata, tightening his core, his neck, his arms. Under his uniform, his muscles coiled like steel cables. The intent rolling off him was suffocating. It was the killing intent of the Niko style. He looked Katsuki dead in the eye. Try it, Izuku whispered. But if you attack me again, I won't just redirect it. I'll break your arm. He meant it. Katsuki could see it. The nerd, the pebble, the crybaby, was gone. In his place was something akin to a wild animal waiting for an excuse to bite. Katsuki hesitated. For a split second, the image of Niko Tokita flickered in his memory, the terrifying man from the park. Izuku had the same eyes now. Enough! The teacher finally shouted, sensing the potential for a lawsuit. Bakugo, sit down! Midoriya, stop provoking him! Izuku exhaled, the tension leaving his body instantly. He sat back down and opened his notebook. I didn't provoke anyone, sensei. Self-defense. Katsuki stood there, panting, fists clenched. He retreated to his desk, but his eyes never left Izuku's back. The hierarchy had shattered. And he didn't know how to handle it. Part 4. The Tunnel and the Sludge. School ended. Izuku packed his bag quickly. He didn't want to talk. He wanted to train. Niko was gone, but the routine remained. He walked the familiar route toward the shopping district, taking the shortcut under the underpass. The shadows were cool here. He hummed a tune, his mind replaying the encounter with Katsuki. I shouldn't have grabbed him, Izuku thought. I revealed too much. Niko would say I gave away my hand too early. But... He flexed his hand. It felt good to not be afraid. A sound came from the manhole cover behind him. A wet, squelching sound. Izuku spun around, dropping into a low stance instantly. Water kata. A massive surge of green sludge erupted from the sewer. It formed into a towering, liquid face with crazed eyes. A medium-sized invisibility cloak. The villain hissed. You'll do nicely, kid. The sludge lunged. A normal civilian would have frozen. A normal student would have screamed. Izuku analyzed. Fluid body. No solid joints. Blunt force trauma will be ineffective. Suffocation risk, high. As the sludge tendril shot toward him, Izuku used flame kata flash fire. He sidestepped with blinding speed, the sludge slapping the concrete where he had been a millisecond before. Fast. The villain grunted. But there's nowhere to run. Multiple tendrils shot out, blocking the exit. Don't struggle, the villain laughed. It'll only hurt for 45 seconds. Izuku backed up against the wall. He's closing the distance. I can't grapple him, I'll sink in. I can't punch him, it'll splash. Wait, the eyes were solid. The villain surged forward to engulf him. Izuku took a deep breath. Adamantine kata, iron fingers. Izuku stiffened his fingers into spears. As the slime enveloped him, he didn't panic. He thrust his hand straight toward the villain's eyeball. Arg! The villain recoiled, the slime loosening for a second. Now! Izuku tore himself free from the muck, gasping for air. He was covered in slime, but alive. He retreated, creating distance. I can't kill him, Izuku realized. My attacks are too focused on breaking bones. He has no bones. I need wind pressure? No, I'm not strong enough to generate that much force without a run-up. The villain recovered, his eye red and angry. You little brat. I'm going to. Clang. The manhole cover flew into the air. Have no fear. A booming voice echoed through the tunnel. Why? Because I am here. All Might stood at the entrance. He was huge. He was shining. He was exactly like the posters in Izuku's room, but Izuku didn't fanbell. He analyzed. Massive musculature. Posture perfect. But, is he favoring his left side? All Might saw the situation. He saw the boy covered in sludge, standing in a combat stance, not cowering. Texas. Smash! All Might threw a punch. The wind pressure alone was like a hurricane. The sludge villain was blown apart, scattered across the tunnel walls like abstract art. Izuku shielded his face with his arms, using indestructible to brace against the shockwave. Incredible. He changed the weather with a single punch. That's pure kinetic output. All Might gathered the unconscious sludge into 2 soda bottles. He turned to Izuku, flashing his signature grin. Are you okay, young man? Apologies for getting you mixed up in my justice ing. Izuku lowered his arms. I'm fine. Just a bit sticky. You moved well. All Might noted, giving a thumbs up. Most would be frozen in terror. You have the heart of a lion. I just didn't want to die, Izuku said, wiping sludge from his cheek. All Might prepared to jump away. Well, I must be off. Evil never sleeps. Wait. Izuku stepped forward. This was the question. The question he had wanted to ask for 10 years. Niko had told him he didn't need a quirk. But Niko was a martial artist, not a hero. Izuku needed to know if this man thought it was possible. All Might! Izuku shouted. Can someone without a quirk become a hero like you? All Might stopped. The steam coming off his body increased. Shit, All Might thought. My time limit. Without a quirk? All Might looked back. He saw the intensity in the boy's eyes. Not hope, exactly. Determination. I have training, Izuku said rapidly. I know martial arts. I can fight. But the world says I need a power. I need to know, is skill enough to save people? All Might felt his form wavering. He coughed, blood trickling from his mouth. Poof! Smoke enveloped the hero. When it cleared, a skeletal, emaciated man stood in his place. Izuku blinked. He didn't scream. He tilted his head. Transformation quirk? No. That looks like atrophy. You're sharp, the skeletal All Might sighed, sitting down against the railing. He lifted his shirt, revealing a horrific, spiderweb scar on his side. 5 years ago. A villain did this. Half my respiratory organs destroyed. Stomach gone. I'm wasting away. Izuku stared at the scar. It was a war wound. Toxic chainsaw? Izuku asked. You know your stuff. But no, he couldn't do this. This was someone else. All Might looked at Izuku. Young man. You asked if you can be a hero without a quirk? All Might looked at his own hand. Pros are always risking their lives. Some villains just can't be beaten with martial arts. Takes power to beat power. Look at me. Even with the strongest quirk, I ended up like this. Izuku felt a cold stone settle in his stomach. I cannot simply say yes, All Might said softly. It's good to dream. But you also have to be realistic. Police officers, detectives, they fight evil too. It's a noble profession. All Might stood up, grabbing the soda bottles. I'm sorry. But I don't want to see you die young. He walked away. Izuku stood on the rooftop where they had landed. When did they get to a roof? Izuku had grabbed All Might's leg. Right. Realistic, Izuku muttered. He looked at his scarred hands. Niko. He says I can't do it. Izuku clenched his fist until the knuckles cracked. He's wrong. Part 5, The Pragmatist. Izuku walked toward the shopping district, lost in thought. All Might's words stung, but they didn't break him. Niko had broken him 1,000 times and rebuilt him stronger. A few words wouldn't undo that. Boom! An explosion rattled the windows of the street. Smoke billowed into the sky. Izuku ran. Not to watch, but to assess. When he arrived, the scene was chaos. The shopping district was on fire. Heroes were standing around, death arms, Kamui Woods, empty lady, doing nothing. My quirk doesn't work against this. I can't get close to the fire. Izuku pushed through the crowd. He looked at the center of the inferno, the sludge villain. He had escaped. All Might must have dropped the bottle when Izuku grabbed him. My fault, Izuku realized. The villain had a hostage. A blonde boy struggling, firing explosions that only fed the fire. Katsuki? The villain was suffocating him. Taking his body. Izuku looked at the heroes. They were waiting for someone with the right quirk. They were letting a boy die because they weren't the perfect matchup. Is this what it means to be a hero? Izuku thought furiously. Waiting for permission? Waiting for the stars to align? Niko's voice echoed in his head. You don't fight their power. You find the opening. There is always an opening. Izuku's bag dropped to the ground. Before he realized it, he was moving. Hey! Get back here! Death Arms shouted. Izuku ignored him. He sprinted into the fire. The heat was intense, searing his skin, but the adamantine kata helped him ignore the pain signals. Analysis. The villain is distracted by Katsuki's explosions. The eyes are the only solid point. But he knows I target eyes now. He'll guard them. Izuku dodged a lash of sludge. He grabbed a piece of burning debris, a metal pipe. He wasn't going to hit the villain. He hurled the pipe with redirection precision. It didn't hit the villain. It hit a fire hydrant valve nearby. The cap sheared off. A high-pressure jet of water blasted out. It hit the ground, spraying mist and water everywhere. The sludge villain flinched at the sudden pressure. You again? The villain roared. Izuku didn't stop. He used the mist as cover. Flame kata, phantom pace. He appeared in front of the villain. Katsuki's eyes widened. He looked terrified. He looked like the kid in the sandbox. Deku? Katsuki choked out. Don't die, you idiot, Izuku grunted. The villain swung a massive wave of sludge. Izuku couldn't dodge this close. Water kata, water mirror. Izuku used Katsuki's arm, the one popping with explosions, as a fulcrum. He grabbed Katsuki's wrist and pulled, hard. Not to save him yet, but to aim him. He pointed Katsuki's palm directly at the villain's eye. Blast him! Izuku roared. Katsuki reacted on instinct. Boom! The explosion point-blank in the villain's face caused the slime to recoil violently. The hold on Katsuki's mouth loosened. Izuku grabbed Katsuki's collar. He dug his heels into the asphalt. Adamantine kata, iron breaker. He channeled every ounce of strength into his legs and heaved. He ripped Katsuki out of the sludge just as the villain recovered. They tumbled onto the pavement. I'll kill you both. The villain rose up, massive, furious. Izuku stood up, putting himself between the villain and Katsuki. He raised his fists. He was exhausted. His knuckles were burnt. But he was ready to go down swinging. Detroit. Smash! A wind blast tore the street apart. Rain fell from the sky. All Might stood there, steam pouring off him, his fist extended. He had pushed past his limit. He had acted. The crowd went wild. The heroes rushed in to collect the scattered villain. Part 6, The Inheritance. The lecture from the pro-heroes was annoying. You were reckless. You could have gotten killed. Izuku tuned them out. He nodded politely, accepted the scolding, and left as soon as he could. He walked home as the sun set. He was tired. His body ached. Deku! Izuku stopped. Katsuki ran up to him, panting. He looked furious, but shaken. I didn't ask for your help. Katsuki yelled. I was fine. I didn't need a quirkless loser saving me. Izuku turned around. You looked like you were crying, he said simply. Katsuki froze. And Izuku added, you have a strong right hook. But your left side is wide open. Fix that before you Izuku walked away, leaving Katsuki speechless. A moment later, a figure burst from a side alley. I am here! All Might shouted, striking a pose, then immediately deflating into a skeleton coughing up blood. All Might? Izuku blinked. You should be in a hospital. I need to talk to you, All Might wheezed. He wiped his mouth. Young man. I apologize. I scolded you earlier. I told you to be realistic. All Might looked at Izuku with intense respect. On the scene, the pros stood and watched. I, the symbol of peace, hesitated because of my time limit. But you, the quirkless, timid boy, you were the only one who acted. Izuku felt a lump in his throat. You spurred me to action, All Might said. There are stories about every top hero. Their bodies moved before they could think. Today, that happened to you. Izuku looked at his hands. I just analyzed the situation. It was the logical move. It was the heroic move, All Might corrected. He pointed a finger at Izuku. Izuku Midoriya. You proved me wrong. You can become a hero. Tears pricked Izuku's eyes. He clenched his teeth, refusing to let them fall. Niko had taught him not to cry. But this was different. And All Might continued, I have a proposal. I have a secret to tell you. My quirk can be passed on. Izuku's analytical mind screeched to a halt. What? That's biologically impossible. Quirk factors are genetic. Unless you have a symbiotic transferability or... You mutter a lot, don't you? All Might laughed. Listen. My power is called One for All. It is a torch, passed from holder to holder, cultivating power. I am looking for a successor. All Might stepped forward. You have the heart. You have the courage. And today, I saw you have the skill. Young man, I want you to inherit my power. Izuku stared at the greatest hero in the world. He thought about the 10 years in the forest. The bleeding knuckles. The hunger. The Niko style. He had built a vessel capable of violence. A vessel made of steel and scars. And now, he was being offered the fuel to fill it. Izuku imagined Niko Tokita grinning, cigarette in mouth. Take it, kid. Power is power. Izuku looked All Might in the eye. He didn't bow. He stood tall. I'll do it, Izuku said, his voice ringing with absolute conviction. Give me the power. And I'll show you a hero who can truly save everyone. All Might grinned. That's the spirit. Part 1. The Pragmatism of Violence. The afternoon sun of Muzurufu beat down on the pavement, baking the city in a haze of humidity and exhaust fumes. For most students of Aldera Junior High, the walk home was a time to decompress, to laugh about the day's events, or to worry about high school entrance exams. For Izuku Midoriya, the walk home was a tactical assessment. He walked with a rhythmic, silent gait, the flame kata drilled into his muscle memory until it was subconscious. He didn't stomp. He rolled his weight from heel to toe, maximizing balance and minimizing sound. His backpack, heavy with textbooks, didn't sway. His core, tempered by years of the adamantine kata, held it steady. His mind, however, was loud. Bakugo's right hook is faster than last month, Izuku thought, his eyes scanning the reflections in the shop windows for movement behind him. He's incorporating his explosions into the initial acceleration phase of the punch. It increases the velocity, but the telegraph is still there. He drops his left shoulder before ignition. Against a striker, he's dangerous. Against a grappler, he's offering me a free armbar. Izuku sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. The confrontation in the classroom had been messy. Niko would have laughed at him. You showed your hand too early, kid. Never let the enemy know you have teeth until you're biting their throat. I'm not a killer, Niko, Izuku muttered to the empty air. I'm trying to be a hero. He turned into the underpass. It was a shortcut, dark and cool, smelling of damp concrete and stagnant water. The acoustics were good here. He could hear footsteps from 50 meters away. Currently, he heard nothing. Squelch. Izuku stopped. That wasn't a footstep. That was the sound of viscosity. Liquid moving under pressure. He didn't turn around immediately. He shifted his stance, widening his base, his breathing shifting to the deep, controlled rhythm of the adamantine kata. A medium-sized skin suit. A voice hissed, echoing wetly off the tunnel walls. Izuku spun, dropping his center of gravity. Behind him, rising from the sewer grate like a nightmare made of industrial waste, was a massive entity of dark green sludge. Bulging yellow eyes rolled crazily in the muck, focusing on Izuku with predatory glee. You'll do, the villain gurgled. I need to hide from him. Just hold still, kid. It'll only hurt for about 45 seconds while I take over your body. Villain analysis. Izuku's mind raced, time seemingly slowing down as adrenaline, controlled, not frantic, flooded his system. Fluid body type. No visible skeletal structure. Immunity to blunt force trauma, high. Grappling effectiveness, 0. Striking effectiveness, low. The sludge lashed out. A tendril as thick as a tree trunk shot toward Izuku's face. A normal middle schooler would have screamed. Izuku exhaled sharply. Flame kata flash fire. He moved. To the untrained eye, he vanished. He stepped inside the arc of the swing, the wind of the sludge passing inches from his ear. He was now within striking distance of the main mass. Offense is the best defense. Disrupt the core. Izuku planted his feet, the concrete cracking slightly under the pressure of his grip. He tightened every muscle in his right arm, his fist becoming harder than iron. Adamantine kata, iron breaker. He punched. It was a blow capable of shattering cinder blocks, a technique designed to transmit kinetic energy through solid objects to rupture internal organs. Splat! His fist sank into the sludge. There was no impact. No resistance. The kinetic energy dispersed instantly through the liquid medium, rippling harmlessly away. Nice punch, kid! The villain laughed, the sound bubbling. But I'm fluid. You can't break what doesn't have shape. Shit, Izuku thought, retracting his arm. Niko never taught me how to punch a river. The sludge surged forward, wrapping around Izuku's arm before he could pull back completely. It was cold, smelling of sewage and rot. It began to climb up his shoulder, aiming for his mouth and nose. Redirection kata? No, there's no vector of force to redirect. He's enveloping, not striking. Water kata? I can't grapple him. Don't struggle. The villain roared, more tendrils shooting out to pin Izuku's legs. Just let me in. The sludge covered Izuku's mouth. The taste was vile. Panic tried to claw at his throat, the primal fear of suffocation. Izuku ruthlessly crushed it. Panic is death. Think. What is his weakness? The eyes. They were the only solid matter in the fluid mass. Izuku didn't flail. He didn't claw uselessly at the muck covering his face. He focused his remaining freedom of movement on his free left hand. He stiffened his fingers into a spear hand, rigid as steel rods. Adamantine kata pierce. He thrust his hand upward, aiming blindly but with anatomical precision toward where the voice had come from. His fingers connected with something gelatinous but firm. Gah! The villain shrieked. The pressure on Izuku's mouth loosened for a fraction of a second as the villain recoiled. Izuku sucked in a desperate breath of air. You little brat! The villain howled, his eye bloodshot and watering. I'll kill you! The sludge slammed Izuku against the tunnel wall. The impact was heavy, but Izuku engaged indestructible instantly, his back muscles turning into a shield that absorbed the blow. He didn't break bones, but the wind was knocked out of him. I can't win, Izuku realized with cold clarity. I have the skills to kill a man, but I don't have the tools to fight a natural disaster. I need fire. I need ice. I need wind. The villain loomed over him, a tidal wave of muck ready to crash down and end Izuku Midoriya's short life. Die! Clang! The manhole cover at the entrance of the tunnel flew into the air, spinning like a coin. Have no fear! The voice was not loud, it was resonant. It vibrated in Izuku's chest, deeper than the rumble of the sludge. A figure stood silhouetted against the light of the entrance. Tall. Massive. Radiating a pressure that made the air in the tunnel feel suddenly heavy. Why? The figure demanded, striking a pose. Because I am here, All Might. The villain froze. All Might, Texas. All Might pulled his fist back. Izuku watched, his analytical mind refusing to shut off even in the face of salvation. His stance, it's perfect. No wasted movement. He's drawing power from the hips, the back, the shoulder. Smash! It wasn't a punch. It was a cannon blast of air pressure. The world turned white. The wind roared like a jet engine. The sludge villain didn't just get hit. He was atomized, blown apart into droplets that splattered harmlessly against the tunnel walls. Izuku crossed his arms over his face, digging his heels into the ground, using Iron Breaker to keep himself from being blown away like a leaf. The wind tore at his uniform, stinging his eyes, and then silence. Rain began to fall inside the tunnel, condensation created by the sheer change in air pressure. Izuku lowered his arms. He looked at the villain, now just puddles of goo writhing weakly on the floor. He looked at the man standing there, steam rising from his massive frame, a smile plastering his face that seemed brighter than the sun. Are you okay, young man? All Might asked, his voice booming. Apologies for getting you mixed up in my justice ing. I was chasing this slippery fellow through the sewers. Izuku stood up, dusting off his knees. He wiped a streak of sludge from his cheek. His heart was pounding, not from fear but from awe. That wasn't a quirk, Izuku realized. I mean, he has a quirk. But that punch, that was pure kinetic chain. He utilized 100% of his muscle mass in perfect synchronization. It's the ultimate form of the adamantine kata. I'm fine, Izuku said, his voice steady. Thank you? That was efficient. All Might blinked, seemingly surprised by the boy's calm demeanor. Most kids would be screaming or asking for an autograph. Efficient. Haha. Indeed. Well, I must be off to turn this fellow into the police. All Might began scooping the sludge into 2 empty soda bottles with blinding speed. Wait, Izuku said. He stepped forward. The question burned in his throat. It had burned there for 10 years. Niko had taught him how to fight. Niko had taught him how to survive. But Niko had never called him a hero. Niko called him a fighter, a vessel, a student. Izuku needed to know. All Might, Izuku said. The hero paused, capping the bottles. Yes, citizen? Izuku clenched his fists. I don't have a quirk. All Might stopped moving. I've trained for 10 years, Izuku continued, the words spilling out fast. I know martial arts. I know how to break bones. I know how to hurt people. My master, he taught me that power is the only thing that matters. Izuku looked up, his green eyes piercing into All Might's shadowed gaze. But I want to save people. I want to be like you. Can someone without a quirk, can someone who only has their own body, become a hero? All Might looked at the boy. He saw the scars on Izuku's hands. He saw the way the boy stood, balanced, ready. He saw the intensity, but All Might also felt the familiar, terrible burning in his chest. His time was up. Young man, All Might started, but a cough racked his body. Blood sprayed from his mouth. All Might? Izuku stepped forward. Steam exploded around the hero. The massive form shrank, withering away like a deflated balloon. When the smoke cleared, a skeletal, emaciated man with sunken eyes stood in the place of the symbol of peace. Izuku stopped dead. He didn't scream. He stared. An illusion quirk? Izuku muttered. No. The bone structure is similar. Mass displacement? Atrophy? You're unnervingly calm, the skeletal man sighed, wiping blood from his chin. He sat down heavily against the tunnel wall. But yes. This is the real me. All Might lifted his shirt. Izuku's eyes widened. The scar was horrific. A crater in the man's side, the skin purple and twisted like melted wax. 5 years ago, All Might said softly. A villain did this. Half my respiratory organs destroyed. My whole stomach lost. I've wasted away from the repeated surgeries and the strain. Toxic chainsaw didn't do that, Izuku said instantly. He doesn't have the cutting power to penetrate dense muscle fiber like yours. All Might chuckled darkly. You know your stuff. No. It was someone else. A fight the world doesn't know about. All Might looked the boy in the eye. You asked if you can be a hero without a quirk? The hero looked down at his own hand. The hand that held the world together. Pro-heroes are always risking their lives. Some villains just cannot be beaten with martial arts. Takes power to beat power. Look at me. Even with the strongest quirk, I ended up like this. The silence in the tunnel was heavy. I cannot simply say yes, All Might said. His voice was sad, but firm. It is good to dream, young man. But you must also be realistic. Izuku felt like he had been punched in the gut. Harder than the sludge villain ever could. Realistic, Izuku repeated. The word tasted like ash. The police, All Might said, standing up shakily. They get teased a lot, but it's a fine profession. They fight evil too. If you have combat training, you'd be an asset there. All Might walked toward the exit, the bottles of sludge rattling in his pocket. I'm sorry, the hero said without looking back. But I don't want to see a kid with a bright future die because he brought a fist to a superpower fight. And then he was gone. Izuku stood alone in the tunnel. He looked at his hands. The calluses were thick. The knuckles were flat. Realistic, he whispered again. A ghost of a memory surfaced. Niko Tokita, sitting by a campfire, smoke curling from his lips. The world isn't fair, Izuku. Strong people crush weak people. If you don't like it, get strong. If you're still weak, that's on you. I am strong, Izuku said, his voice trembling with rage. I am strong. He slammed his fist into the concrete wall. Crack. A spiderweb fracture appeared in the cement. His knuckles didn't bleed. So why isn't it enough? Part 2. the failure of the strong. Izuku walked aimlessly. He didn't want to go home. He didn't want to see his mother and her worried eyes. He didn't want to look at his All Might posters. He found himself walking toward the shopping district. The noise of the city usually helped him focus, giving him data to analyze. But today, the noise was different. Sirens. Screams. The smell of burning rubber and ozone. Explosions. Izuku looked up. Smoke was billowing into the sky a few blocks away. A villain attack. Be realistic, All Might had said. Go home, Izuku. Let the pros handle it. But his feet were moving. It wasn't a conscious choice. It was the conditioning. Run toward the danger. Evaluate the threat. He arrived at the scene. It was hell. The narrow street was an inferno. Flames licked the sides of the buildings. Cars were overturned. And in the center of it all, a massive, fluid shape writhed. The sludge villain. He escaped? Izuku whispered, horror dawning on him. All Might. He dropped the bottles. Because of me. Because I grabbed his leg. Izuku pushed through the crowd of onlookers. He reached the police barricade. Stay back. A panicked officer yelled. It's too dangerous. Izuku ignored him, his eyes scanning the scene. He saw the heroes. Death Arms was lifting a piece of debris, but staying back. I can't get close. My punches won't do anything. Kamui Woods was keeping his distance. The fire. I'm vulnerable to heat. Empty Lady was outside the street. I can't grow here. I'll crush the buildings. They were standing there. Watching. Where is All Might? Someone in the crowd shouted. He's coming. He has to be. He's not coming, Izuku thought, a cold knot forming in his stomach. He's out of time. He's past his limit. Izuku looked at the villain. The sludge was bigger now, feeding on the chaos. And inside the muck, struggling violently, was a hostage. Explosions popped and cracked from the hostage's palms, wild and desperate. Katsuki? Izuku froze. He saw Katsuki's face. The arrogance was gone. The pride was gone. His mouth was covered, suffocating. His eyes were wide, white-rimmed with terror. He was dying. And the heroes, the people with the licenses, the quirks, the power to save, were waiting. They were waiting for a better matchup. They were waiting for permission. This is reality? Izuku thought. This is what it means to be a hero. To let a child die because the paperwork doesn't align? Niko's voice roared in his mind, louder than the explosions. You want to save people? Fine. But you can't save anyone if you're dead. Don't take shit from anyone. But then, another memory. A softer one. Niko, bandaging Izuku's arm after a failed attempt at the flame kata. You know why you're strong, kid? It ain't the muscles. It's because you're too stupid to stay down. That's a talent. Izuku's eyes met Katsuki's. In that split second, Katsuki wasn't the bully. He wasn't the tormentor. He was just a victim. A terrified kid who needed help. Izuku didn't think. He didn't weigh the pros and cons. The barricade tape snapped. Hey! You idiot! Get back here! Death Arms shouted. Izuku didn't hear him. The world narrowed down to a tunnel. At the end of the tunnel was Katsuki. He ran. He didn't run like a civilian. He entered the flame kata. His steps were erratic, sliding side to side, creating a rhythmic confusion. To the villain, Izuku didn't look like he was running straight. He looked like a blur that was impossible to track. You again? The sludge villain roared. I'll squash you like a bug. A tendril of sludge lashed out, fast as a whip. Izuku didn't dodge. He slid. Redirection kata, flowing edge. He slapped the tendril with the back of his hand, deflecting it just inches past his shoulder, using the villain's own momentum to pull himself closer. He was inside the kill zone. The heat was blistering. The explosions from Katsuki were erratic and dangerous. Tactical assessment. The villain is focused on consuming Katsuki. The eyes are guarded. I can't pull Katsuki out. The suction is too strong. I need to disrupt the villain's cohesion. Izuku's hand went to his backpack strap. He swung the heavy bag with his entire body weight. It wasn't a random throw. It was a projectile. The bag flew through the air, the zippers bursting open. A hardcover math textbook flew out, spinning like a shuriken. Thwack! It hit the villain's exposed eye. Arg! The villain flinched, the sludge around Katsuki's face loosening for a microsecond. Katsuki gasped, sucking in air. Duh! Deku? Izuku slammed his feet into the asphalt, skidding to a halt right in front of them. He didn't look scared. He looked furious. You look pathetic, Katsuki, Izuku growled. Get away! Katsuki coughed. The villain recovered. He loomed over them, a mountain of hate. I'm done playing. I'll kill you both. A massive wave of sludge rose up, ready to crash down. Izuku looked at the wave. He couldn't stop it. He couldn't punch it away. But I can make him regret touching me. Izuku grabbed Katsuki's collar with his left hand. He grabbed Katsuki's explosive right arm with his right hand. Katsuki! Izuku shouted over the roar of the fire. Stop flailing! Aim! Ha! Aim at the eyes. I'll create the opening. Izuku stomped the ground. Adamantine kata, indestructible. He reinforced his legs, rooting himself to the ground. The sludge wave crashed down. Izuku didn't buckle. He took the weight of the villain on his shoulders, his knees bending but not breaking. He was being crushed, but he held the line. Now! Izuku screamed. He twisted his hips, using the water kata to manipulate Katsuki's body, forcing the explosive boy's arm upward, pointing directly into the villain's main mass. Katsuki, fueled by pure instinct and rage, let it rip. Boom! The explosion was point blank. The blast wave disrupted the sludge, blowing a massive hole in the villain's center. The pressure holding them down vanished. Izuku didn't waste a moment. He hauled Katsuki out of the muck, spinning him around and shoving him behind his back. Izuku stood between the villain and the victim. He raised his fists. His knuckles were raw. His uniform was singed. He was shaking, not from fear, but from the exertion of holding back a ton of liquid hate. The villain reformed, screaming in incoherent rage. He raised a dozen tendrils, sharpening them into spears. Izuku took a breath. Niko-style void. Come on, Detroit. The wind stopped. Izuku felt a presence behind him. A presence so large it eclipsed the fire. All Might was there. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't laughing. His face was a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. He had forced his body past its limit, pushed through the injury, through the pain, through the weakness, because he had seen a quirkless boy run into hell when the pros stood watching. All Might grabbed Izuku's arm and Katsuki's arm, pulling them back. Smaz! He punched the air. It wasn't like the one in the tunnel. This was desperate. This was 100% plus. The updraft was apocalyptic. The sludge villain wasn't just defeated, he was scattered into the stratosphere. The fire was blown out instantly. The clouds above the city swirled, darkened, and then, rain. Black rain fell on the silent street. All Might stood tall, steam pouring off his body, his arm raised. He swayed slightly, but he didn't fall. Izuku fell to his knees, gasping for air. He looked at his hands. They were shaking. I did it, he thought. I didn't die. Part 3: The Verdict. The aftermath was a blur of flashing lights and shouting. The pro-heroes were furious. You idiot! Kamui Wood scolded, pointing a wooden finger at Izuku. You have no quirk. You could have gotten yourself killed. You interfered with official hero work. That was suicide. Death Arms barked. What were you thinking? Izuku sat on the bumper of an ambulance, a paramedic checking his eyes. He listened to the heroes berate him. He looked at them. Really looked at them. I was thinking, Izuku said, his voice cutting through their shouting. It was quiet, cold, and hard. The heroes stopped. I was thinking that he was dying, Izuku said, pointing to where Katsuki was being praised for his bravery and powerful quirk. And I was thinking that you were all standing there watching it happen. Death Arms bristled. We didn't have the right quirks for the situation. It was a hostage situation, so you wait until the hostage is dead? Izuku asked. He stood up. He winced as his bruised ribs protested. A hero who waits for the perfect conditions isn't a hero. They're just a civil servant with a costume. You little. Death Arms stepped forward. Enough, a police detective stepped in. He wore a trench coat and a hat. Tsukachi. The boy is a minor, and he's in shock. Let him go. Izuku grabbed his backpack. He didn't look back at the heroes. He walked away into the twilight. He walked for 10 minutes before he heard running footsteps. Deku! Izuku stopped and turned. Katsuki stood there. He looked messy, his uniform torn, his pride bruised. I didn't ask for your help. Katsuki yelled, his voice cracking. I didn't need you. I could have handled it. Izuku stared at him. He saw the trembling in Katsuki's hands. You were crying, Izuku said. Katsuki froze. You were crying, and you were dying, Izuku said simply. I didn't save you because I think I'm better than you, Katsuki. I saved you because you couldn't save yourself. Katsuki grit his teeth, tears of frustration welling up. Don't look down on me. I'm not, Izuku said, turning away. But catch up. Because if that's the best the future number 1 hero can do, you're going to get yourself killed. Izuku continued walking. He felt heavy. The adrenaline crash was hitting him. All Might was right, Izuku thought. The pros were angry. The world doesn't want a quirkless hero. It wants a show. I am here. Izuku jumped as All Might slid out from a side alley, striking a pose before instantly exploding into a cloud of steam and blood. All Might? Izuku blinked. You really need to go to a hospital. I got away from the reporters, the skeletal man wheezed. Young man. I have been looking for you. To scold me too? Izuku asked bitterly. Tell me I was reckless? Tell me to be realistic? No. All Might straightened up. He looked at Izuku with an intensity that made the boy flinch. I want to apologize, All Might said. And I want to thank you. Thank me? Back in the tunnel. I told you it was impossible. I gave up. But at the scene, I watched you. All Might placed a hand on his chest. None of the pros moved. I didn't move. But you, timid, quirkless you ran. My legs just moved on their own, Izuku muttered. It was habit. Training. No, All Might shook his head. Top heroes, they all have stories from their school days. They say that before they could think, their bodies moved to save others. Today, that happened to you. The wind blew through the street. You looked that villain in the eye. You entered the fire. And because you did, I was able to act. You saved that boy. And you saved me from being a hypocrite. All Might smiled. It wasn't the commercial smile. It was a genuine, tired, human smile. Izuku Midoriya. You proved me wrong. The words hung in the air. You can become a hero. Izuku felt his knees give out. He fell to the pavement. He clutched his chest. The dam broke. Tears streamed down his face. Not the wailing cry of his childhood, but silent, shaking sobs of relief. 10 years. 10 years of bleeding in the woods. 10 years of Niko telling him to be a weapon. 10 years of the world telling him he was nothing. I can? Izuku choked out. Yes, All Might said. But there is a catch. Izuku looked up, wiping his eyes. A catch? I have a secret, young man. A secret about my quirk. All Might held out his hand, palm open. The tabloids guess. Super strength? Gravity manipulation? Booster muscles? No. All Might looked at the stars. My quirk is not natural. It is a torch, passed down from one generation to the next. It accumulates power, stockpiles it, and is handed to a successor. Passed down? Izuku's analytical brain rebooted. Quirk transfer? That's historically unprecedented. There are rumors of quirks that can steal, but to give? That violates the laws of biological quirk factors unless. You mutter a lot, don't you? All Might laughed. It is called one for all. One person cultivates the power and passes it to another. I am the 8th holder. All Might looked at Izuku. I have been looking for a successor. Someone with the heart of a hero. Someone who embodies the spirit of self-sacrifice. All Might pointed at Izuku. You have the heart. And thanks to your master, you have the body. You are a vessel ready to be filled. Izuku looked at his scarred hands. He remembered Niko's last lesson. Integration. The adamantine kata. The fire kata. Use everything. Niko had built the car. All Might was offering the engine. If I accept this. Izuku stood up. The sorrow was gone. His eyes were clear. Sharp. Will I be strong enough to save everyone? That depends on you, All Might said. It won't be easy. The power is immense. It can break a weak body. My body isn't weak, Izuku said. He engaged the adamantine kata, his shirt straining slightly against the sudden tension of his muscles. All Might's eyes widened slightly. He has total muscular control. Incredible. Then, Izuku Midoriya, All Might said. Will you accept my power? Izuku didn't hesitate. I will. Part 4, The Empty Camp. It was late when Izuku reached the municipal forest. The moon cast long shadows through the trees. He needed to tell Niko. He needed to tell his master that he was wrong, that he could be a hero. And he needed to tell him that he was right, that the training had mattered. He ran up the mountain trail, using flash fire to navigate the roots and rocks in the dark. He reached the clearing where they had trained for a decade. Niko! Izuku shouted. Niko, I did it! I met All Might. He stopped. The clearing was empty. Usually, there was a fire. Usually, Niko was sleeping against a tree or skinning a rabbit. The fire pit was cold. The ashes were old, scattered by the wind. Izuku walked to the center of the camp. The makeshift lean-to was dismantled. There was nothing left but flattened grass. Nailed to the trunk of the massive oak tree they used for impact training was a piece of paper. Izuku pulled it down. He recognized the messy, scrawled handwriting. Kid, if you're reading this, you probably did something stupid like run into a burning building or punch a villain way above your weight class. Good. I taught you how to survive. I taught you how to fight. I taught you the Niko style. But I can't teach you how to be a hero. That's not my world. My world is the inside. It's blood and dirt. I saw the news. That skeleton guy, he's looking for someone, isn't he? I saw him watching you a few times over the years. Yeah, I knew. You don't need me anymore. You have a new master now. Don't embarrass the Niko style. If I hear you died because you forgot to tighten your gut, I'll come back and kick your ass myself. P.S. You still telegraph your left high kick. Niko. Izuku lowered the note. He traced the words with his thumb. Niko hadn't left because he was bored. He hadn't left because he didn't care. He left because he knew Izuku was ready to move on. He had cleared the path for All Might. Izuku looked up at the moon through the canopy. I won't embarrass you, master, Izuku whispered. He folded the note carefully and put it in his pocket. Then, he assumed a stance. Adamantine kata. He punched the oak tree. Crack. A deep depression appeared in the wood, shaped perfectly like his fist. I'll be the strongest hero this world has ever seen, Izuku vowed to the silent forest. The hero of the inside. He turned and walked back down the mountain. Tomorrow, his training with All Might would begin. And the world wasn't ready for what was coming. Part 1. The Golden Strand. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting long, fiery shadows across the pristine sands of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. It was a place that, until recently, had been a graveyard for the city's refuse, a towering monument to illegal dumping and neglect. Now it was barren. Clean. The sand was raked in zen-like patterns, save for the footprints of two people. All Might stood by the railing, staring at the beach with his hollow, shadowed eyes. He held a small bento box in his hand, though he hadn't taken a bite. I still can't believe it, the skeletal hero muttered. I told you to clean a section of the beach to build your body. I expected a corner. Maybe a truckload. He gestured to the expanse of sand that stretched for acres. You cleared the entire coastline. In 10 months? No. You said you did this before we met? Izuku Midoriya sat on the railing next to him, nursing a protein shake. He wore a plain gray tank top that clung to a frame that defied the logic of a middle schooler. He wasn't bulky like a bodybuilder. His muscles were dense, compacted, and etched with the kind of definition that usually came from starvation and survival, not a gym membership. Niko hated training in trash, Izuku said, taking a sip. He said if I stepped on a rusty nail and got tetanus, he'd beat me for being careless. So, when I was 10, I started moving the appliances. It took 4 years, not 10 months. All Might looked at the boy. 4 years of hauling fridges and cars without a quirk. Just to create a dojo. Your master, All Might said, a hint of reverence in his voice. This Niko Tokita. He must have been a demon. He was a ghost, Izuku corrected. Demons make noise. Niko was quiet. Izuku hopped off the railing. He crushed the empty carton in his hand. So, Izuku said, his eyes sharpening. The exam is tomorrow. My body is ready. My mind is ready. Where is it? All Might stood up straight. Even in his weakened form, he possessed a gravity that bent the air around him. He reached up and plucked a single strand of golden hair from his head. This is it, All Might said, holding it out. Izuku blinked. He leaned in, analyzing the hair. Genetic material. DNA transfer. Okay. So I need to ingest it to integrate the quirk factor into my biological sequence. It acts like a retrovirus, rewriting my base code to allow for energy stockpiling? You mutter too much. All Might laughed, blood spurting from his mouth. Just eat it. Eat it? Izuku looked at the hair, then at All Might. That's unhygienic? It's the quickest way. DNA ingestion. Come on, young Midoriya, don't get squeamish now after dragging sludge villains out of fires. Izuku sighed. He took the hair. He didn't hesitate or make a show of it. He viewed it as a necessary resource. Like eating the bitter herbs Niko used to make him chew to numb pain, he swallowed it dry. Done, Izuku said. Now what? All Might checked his watch. It takes a few hours to digest and activate. You should feel something. A heat. A buzz. Like your blood is carbonated. And then, All Might said, his voice turning serious, you try not to explode. Part 2, the first ignition. 3 hours later. The moon was high. The beach was silent, save for the rhythmic crashing of waves. Izuku stood shirtless near the water's edge. He felt it. It wasn't a buzz. It was a roar. Deep in his stomach, spreading through his veins, there was a heat that felt like molten lead. It wasn't painful, exactly, but it was heavy. It felt like he had swallowed a star. Niko always said the body is an engine, Izuku whispered, closing his eyes. This is high-octane fuel. All Might stood a safe distance away. The power of one for all is stockpiled energy. It's not just strength, it's the culmination of 8 generations of heroes. If you try to use 100% right away, your limbs will shatter. You have to regulate it. Regulate, Izuku repeated. Like a valve. Exactly. Imagine an egg in a microwave. If you don't lower the wattage, that's a bad analogy, Izuku interrupted, opening his eyes. They glowed faintly green in the dark. Microwaves heat water molecules violently. I'm not trying to cook myself. I'm trying to channel hydraulic pressure through a hose. All Might's sweat dropped. All right. Whatever works for you. Just try a smash. Aim for the ocean. Just the wind pressure. Izuku planted his feet. The sand shifted under his weight. He took a breath. He reached for the power. Immediately, the energy surged. It wanted out. It rushed toward his right arm like a dam breaking. Red veins flared across his skin, glowing with volatile energy. Too much, Izuku's instinct screamed. This is too much pressure. My bones will snap like twigs. A normal person would panic. A normal person would try to stop it, or let it fly and accept the injury. Izuku Midoriya did neither. He fell back on 10 years of torture. Adamantine kata. Indestructible, he hissed. Instantly, the muscles in his right arm, shoulder, and pectoral clamped down. It wasn't just flexing. It was a microscopic tightening of the muscle fibers to the point of rigidity. He turned his flesh into a biological cast, squeezing the bones, reinforcing the structure. He fought the energy with his own body. The one for all energy pushed out. The adamantine kata pushed in. The collision of forces caused the air around him to vibrate. His arm turned a dark, bruised shade of red, steam hissing from his pores. Smash! He threw the punch. Boom! It wasn't a 100% smash. It wasn't the weather-changing force of All Might, but the shockwave tore a trench through the ocean surface, sending a spray of water 50 feet into the air and parting the waves for 100 meters. The recoil hit him. Izuku grunted, sliding back 10 feet in the sand. He fell to one knee, clutching his right arm. All Might rushed over. Midoriya, Are you okay? Did you break it? Izuku breathed heavily, sweat pouring down his face. He looked at his arm. It was purple. It was trembling. The skin was hot to the touch. But the bone. He flexed his fingers. It's not broken, Izuku rasped. A grin, sharp and feral, tugged at the corner of his mouth. Microfractures, maybe? Torn muscle fibers, definitely. But the structure held. All Might stared, jaw slack. You contained it? On the first try? I used the adamantine kata, Izuku explained, standing up shakily. I tightened the muscles to act as a splint before the energy could expand fully. I choked the output. You choked the output? All Might looked at the ocean, then back at the boy. That smash was, maybe 15%. Most people would have blown their arm off trying to restrain that much backlash. It hurts, Izuku admitted, rolling his shoulder. The pain was searing, like liquid fire in his marrow. But pain is just information. It tells me the limit. He looked at his fist. The green lightning flickered and died. I can't use 100%, Izuku analyzed. If I do, even indestructible won't save me. The pressure will liquefy my bones. But I can handle 10% to 15%. Maybe 20% for a split second on impact. All Might placed a hand on Izuku's shoulder. The skeletal man was trembling with excitement. You really are a monster, kid, All Might whispered fondly. A vessel of power, indeed. Izuku looked at the horizon, where the UA Academy stood miles away. I'm ready. Part 3, The Gates of Judgment. The morning of the UA entrance exam was bright, loud, and chaotic. Thousands of students swarmed the massive gates of the Hero Academy. The air buzzed with nervous energy, the chatter of quirks, and the weight of dreams. Izuku walked through the crowd. He wore his middle school uniform, which felt tight across the shoulders. He carried nothing but a pencil case and his ID. He didn't look nervous. He looked bored. Observation: most of these kids are soft. They rely entirely on their quirks. Their stances are open. Their situational awareness is zero. He sidestepped a boy with rocks growing out of his head without looking. He ducked under a girl floating on a cloud without breaking stride. Out of my way, Deku! The shout came from behind. Izuku didn't flinch. He recognized the cadence of the footsteps. Heavy heel strikes. Aggressive posture. Katsuki Bakugo stomped past him, shoulder checking the air where Izuku had been a second ago. Izuku had shifted his weight using phantom pace to avoid contact. Katsuki stopped. He turned, vibrating with hostility. Don't think just because you saved me that we're friends, Katsuki snarled. I'm still going to be number one. You're just a pebble. Izuku stopped. He looked at Katsuki. 10 years ago, he would have cried. 2 weeks ago, he would have argued. Today, he just looked at Katsuki's knees. You're favoring your right leg, Izuku said calmly. The sludge villains strained your ACL. You should wrap it before the practical, or you'll lose mobility on turns. Katsuki choked. Huh? Don't analyze me, you damn nerd. Izuku walked past him. Just advice. I want a challenge, Katsuki. Don't break before I get to fight you properly. He left Katsuki standing there, mouth agape, confused by the utter lack of fear in Izuku's eyes. Izuku continued walking toward the main hall. He was focused. Step. Breath. Scan. He was so focused that he almost didn't notice the girl tripping in front of him. She had brown, bobbed hair and a round face. She caught her toe on a loose tile. Oh, she began to fall forward. Izuku moved. He didn't use a quirk. He simply flowed. He stepped into her space, his movement fluid like water. He caught her wrist with his left hand and placed his right hand gently on her shoulder. Redirection kata, weeping willow. He guided her momentum, spinning her slightly so that instead of face planting, she rotated and landed softly on her feet, balanced. It happened in the blink of an eye. Whoa, the girl blinked, looking at her feet, then at Izuku. I thought I was gonna kiss the pavement. Izuku released her. Balance is key. Watch your step. Thanks. She beamed. I'm Uraraka Ochako. You're really fast. Was that a speed quirk? Something like that, Izuku murmured. Good luck. He kept walking. He's intense, Uraraka whispered to herself, watching his back. Part 4. The Orientation. The auditorium was dark, lit only by the spotlight on the stage. Everybody say hey. President Mike screamed into the microphone. Silence answered him. Izuku sat in the middle row, scribbling in a notebook. Exam structure, written portion completed. Easy. Now the practical. 10-minute mock urban battle. 3 types of villain bots. Points assigned by difficulty. We have the 1-pointer, the 2-pointer, and the 3-pointer. Mike shouted, pointing at the screen. Destroy them to earn points. Izuku tapped his pen. Robots. Non-biological entities. Pain compliance is useless. Chokes are useless. This is a test of destruction capability. It put him at a disadvantage compared to emitters, but he had one for all. Wait, Izuku thought. Robots have joints. Hydraulics. Wiring. They aren't solid blocks of metal. They have anatomy. If they have anatomy, they can be killed. Excuse me, sir. A tall boy with glasses and blue hair stood up in the audience. He pointed rigidly at the stage. The pamphlet says there are 4 types of villains. If this is an error, it is highly shameful for you, eh? And you, the boy spun around and pointed a finger directly at Izuku. You've been muttering this whole time. It's distracting. If you're here to mess around, leave. The spotlight shifted to Izuku. Thousands of eyes turned to him. Izuku stopped writing. He slowly looked up. He didn't look embarrassed. He looked annoyed. I'm analyzing the threat, Izuku said, his voice projecting clearly without shouting. If knowing your enemy is messing around, then you're going to die in the field. The auditorium went dead silent. The boy with glasses, Ida, stiffened. What? Strategy, Izuku said, tapping his temple. You should try it. Sit down. President Mike coughed awkwardly. All right. Tough crowd. The 4th robot is a 0-pointer. It's just an obstacle. Avoid it. Now get to your battle centers. Plus Ultra. Part 5. The Cull. Battle Center B. It was a replica of a city district, complete with skyscrapers, roads, and streetlights. It was massive. Izuku stood at the gates, stretching his hamstrings. He wore a green tracksuit he had bought at a thrift store. Niko never believed in expensive gear. He looked around. Uraraka was there, looking nervous. Ida was there, revving his engines and glaring at Izuku. Start! President Mick's voice boomed from the tower. There are no countdowns in a real battle. Go, go, go. The other students hesitated, confused. Izuku didn't. The moment the word start registered, he was gone. Flame kata flash fire. He engaged his calves and quads, exploding off the line. He left a cloud of dust in his wake. By the time the other students realized the exam had begun, Izuku was already 50 meters inside the city. Target acquired. A 1-pointer. A unicycle-style robot with machine gun arms. It rolled around a corner, its sensors lighting up red. Target located. It raised its arm. Izuku didn't slow down. He accelerated. Range 10 meters. Closing speed 40 kilometers per hour. He didn't use one for all yet. He didn't need it. He sprinted straight at the robot. Just as it fired, he dropped into a slide. Water kata. He slid under the gunfire, the bullets chewing up the asphalt behind him. He popped up right in front of the robot. Adamantine kata, iron breaker. He didn't punch the armor plating. He punched the exposed wheel axle. Crunch. His hardened fist sheared through the metal. The wheel snapped off. The robot toppled over, sparking. Izuku didn't stop to admire his handiwork. He jumped onto the fallen robot, using it as a springboard to launch himself toward a balcony on the 2nd floor of a building. 1 point. From the observation room, the teachers watched the screens. Interesting, Midnight purred. That green-haired boy. No quirk usage yet. Just raw physical specs. He moves like a pro, Snipe noted. Efficient. Brutal. He identified the weak point instantly. But Aizawa muttered, his eyes narrowed. Pure martial arts has a limit against hardware. Let's see what happens when the big ones show up. Back in the city, the big ones showed up. 3 3-pointers. Massive, tank-treaded behemoths with missile launchers. They boxed Izuku into an alleyway. 3 targets, Izuku breathed. No exit. Vertical escape is the only option. He felt the hum of one for all in his veins. The golden fire. Time to open the valve. One for all, full cal 5%. He hadn't mastered the full body flow yet, but he could pulse it. Green lightning crackled around his legs. He jumped. It wasn't a jump, it was a launch. He shot up 3 stories in a blink. He landed on the side of the building, his feet gripping the brick. Adamantine kata, indestructible. He hardened his legs to absorb the impact. He looked down at the robots. Death from above, Izuku whispered. He pushed off the wall. He fell toward the center robot. Adamantine kata X1 for all, iron breaker smash. He drove his fist into the head of the 3-pointer. The combination of Niko's style hardening and one for all's raw power was catastrophic. Kaboom! The robot didn't just break, it caved in. The head was driven down into the chassis, crumpling the entire machine like a soda can. The shockwave knocked the other 2 robots onto their sides. Izuku landed on top of the scrap heap. Smoke rose from his fist. His arm throbbed, the muscles screaming in protest, but the bone was intact. He looked at the other 2 prone robots. He moved. Flash fire. He appeared next to one. He ripped its sensor array out with his bare hands. 2 down. He vaulted over the 3rd one. He drove a heel kick into its fuel cell. 3 down. 9 points, Izuku counted. Too slow. He took off running again. The next 10 minutes were a blur of violence. Izuku didn't fight like a hero. He fought like a force of nature. He didn't waste movements with flashy attacks. He dissected the robots. He used redirection kata to trick a 2-pointer into punching itself. He used water kata to weave through a hail of rubber bullets without a scratch. He used flame kata to outrun the swift 1-pointers. And whenever armor was too thick, he pulsed one for all and smashed through it with iron breaker. 40 points. 45, 50. Other students stopped to watch him. Who is that guy? Is his quirk super strength? No, he's doing karate on giant robots. Uraraka was nearby, floating a robot. She watched Izuku tear the arm off a 3-pointer and use it as a club to decapitate another one. He's scary, she whispered. But she couldn't look away. Part 6. The 0-pointer. 2 minutes left. Izuku had 60 points. That was enough. A solid passing score. He stood atop a pile of rubble, wiping sweat and grease from his forehead. His tank top was torn. His knuckles were bruised. But he wasn't winded. Niko's cardio training was hell. This was just a jog. I should preserve stamina, Izuku calculated. The exam is nearly over. Then, the ground shook. Rumble. It wasn't an explosion. It was an earthquake. Buildings began to collapse. Dust clouds billowed higher than the skyscrapers. From the dust, it emerged. The 0-pointer. It was colossal. Godzilla-sized. Its tracks crushed cars like grapes. Its mere movement generated wind pressure that knocked students off their feet. Run! It's huge! It's not worth points. Just run! The students fled in panic. The instinct to survive overrode the desire to be a hero. Izuku watched it. Size massive. Threat level catastrophic. Weakness, neck joint is exposed, but unreachable without flight. Action, retreat. He turned to leave. Ow! A cry. Faint, but audible to his trained ears. Izuku stopped. He looked back. Uraraka was trapped. She had tripped, again, and a piece of concrete rubble had pinned her leg. She was struggling, her face pale with terror. The 0-pointer was looming over her. Its massive tread was descending. It would crush her in 10 seconds. The other students were running away. Izuku's mind went blank. The analysis stopped. The calculation of points stopped. You want to save people? Fine. But you can't save anyone if you're dead. Sorry, Niko, Izuku growled, green lightning exploding around his body. I'm not leaving her. He moved. This time, he didn't use flash fire to conserve energy. He used one for all in his legs. 10%. He rocketed across the battlefield. The ground cracked where he stepped. He reached Uraraka in 2 seconds. Can you move? He shouted. My leg! She cried. It's stuck. Izuku grabbed the slab of concrete. It weighed at least 2 tons. Adamantine kata, indestructible. He lifted. His muscles bulged, veins popping. He heaved the stone aside like it was styrofoam. Get up, he ordered. I can't walk. The shadow of the zero-pointer fell over them. The tread was descending. Izuku looked up. I can't carry her out in time. The area of effect of the stomp is too wide. I have to stop the robot. Stop it? It's the size of a building. Then I have to kill it. Izuku looked at the giant metal face. Stay here, Izuku said. He crouched. One for all, full call 15%. The pain was blinding. His bones creaked. Flame kata, raging fire. He sprinted. Not away. Toward the robot. He ran up the falling debris. He ran up the side of a collapsing building. He jumped. He was airborne, flying toward the robot's face. Hey! Giant trash can! Izuku roared. The robot's sensors locked onto the gnat flying at it. Izuku clenched his right fist. He channeled everything he had. He pulled the energy from his toes, his hips, his core. He tightened every muscle fiber until he felt like stone. Adamant kata. The green lightning turned white. One for all. He spun in the air, adding centrifugal force. Ironbreaker smash! He connected. He punched the robot square in the faceplate. KRKOM. The sound was deafening. The impact didn't just dent the metal. It sent a shockwave through the entire chassis. The metal buckled, folded, and shattered. The head of the zero-pointer was blown backward, snapping off the neck joint. The massive momentum of the punch halted the robot's forward motion. The entire machine tipped backward, crashing into the street with an earth-shattering thud. Izuku hung in the air for a second, suspended in the dust cloud. Then gravity took hold. He was falling. Fast. His right arm was purple. Useless. He had pushed it too far. I'm falling from 50 meters. No landing strategy. Legs are numb. He saw the ground rushing up. Think. Water kata. He couldn't stop the fall, but he could disperse it. Slap the ground, he whispered. Break the tension. As he neared the pavement, he twisted his body. He prepared his left arm and his legs. He hit the ground. He didn't splat. He rolled. He used water kata, jellyfish, to make his muscles loose, absorbing the kinetic energy and transferring it into a rolling motion. He tumbled for 20 meters, crashing through a bus stop, before coming to a halt. He lay there, staring at the sky. Time's up. Present mix sirens sounded. Silence returned to Battle Center B. The students slowly stopped running. They turned around. They saw the headless zero-pointer. They saw the crater. And they saw the boy in the green tracksuit, lying in the rubble, clutching a broken arm. Uraraka stared, tears in her eyes. He destroyed it. Ida took off his glasses, his hands shaking. One punch. He took down a colossus with one punch. From the observation room, All Might gripped the railing until it bent. He was grinning so hard it hurt. That's my boy, the symbol of peace whispered. Izuku groaned, closing his eyes. Niko's gonna kill me, he muttered. I definitely broke a bone. Part 1. The Price of Power. The dust settled slowly over Battle Center B, coating the ruins of the mock city in a fine gray powder. The silence was absolute, save for the distant, dying whir of the zero-pointer's cooling fans. The massive robot lay decapitated, a monument to a force that shouldn't have been possible for a teenager. Izuku Midoriya lay on his back in a crater of shattered concrete. His chest heaved, sucking in air that tasted of pulverized stone and ozone. Pain was information. That was the first lesson Niko Tokita had ever taught him. Right arm, humerus intact. Radius and ulna, stressed, hairline fractures likely. Muscle fibers in the tricep and deltoid are torn. The adamantine kata held the bone structure together, but the kinetic recoil turned the soft tissue into jelly. Legs numb. The landing used the water kata to disperse impact, but dropping 50 meters is still dropping 50 meters. My ankles feel like they're fused. You destroyed it. The voice was shaky. Izuku cracked one eye open. Uraraka Ochako was hovering over him, literally hovering slightly, her gravity quirk still active from panic. Her face was streaked with dust and tears. Are you okay? She asked, reaching out but afraid to touch him. Your arm it's purple. I'm fine, Izuku gritted out. He tried to sit up. Agony spiked through his shoulder, white-hot and blinding. He didn't scream. he hissed through his teeth, engaging his core muscles to stabilize his torso. Don't move! It was Ida Tenya, sprinting over with stiff, frantic motions. The medical team is en route. That was reckless. Suicidal. But Ida adjusted his glasses, which were askew. It was magnificent. Reckless? Izuku managed a dry chuckle. He looked at his ruined arm. Yeah. Niko would have beat my ass for that one. Never throw a punch that breaks your own hand, he'd say. Who is Niko? Uraraka asked softly. A ghost, Izuku muttered, his vision swimming. A small, elderly woman in a nurse's uniform hobbled through the wreckage, using a syringe like a cane. Recovery girl. Oh dearie me, she sighed, looking at the devastation. Every year, the destruction gets worse. And you? She looked down at Izuku. You look like you wrestled a train. She knelt beside him. Let me see the arm. Izuku held it out. Recovery girl's eyes widened behind her visor. Interesting, she murmured. Usually, with this kind of impact force, the bone would be powder. But your muscle density, it's abnormal. You clamped down on the bone so hard it acted like a biological cast. You saved your own arm, Sonny. Adamantine kata, Izuku whispered. Indestructible. Whatever you call it, it saved you from surgery, she said. She leaned in. Smooch. Vitality rushed into him, followed immediately by a wave of exhaustion so heavy it felt like gravity had doubled. The bruises on his arm faded to a dull yellow. The hairline fractures knit together. Sleep now, recovery girl commanded. You've done enough. Izuku didn't argue. As the darkness took him, his last thought wasn't about the pain, or the robot, or All Might. It was, did I get enough points? Part 2, the letter and the logic. 1 week later, the Midoriya household was quiet. Inko Midoriya was pacing in the kitchen, her anxiety radiating off her in waves. Izuku sat at the kotatsu, staring at a fish on his plate. His arm was healed, mostly. It still ached when it rained, a phantom reminder of the power he had unleashed. He had spent the week analyzing his performance. Combat points, 60. That should be a passing grade. The cutoff is usually around 40 for the hero course, but he thought about the 0-pointer. It was worth 0 points. He had sacrificed his arm, his stamina, and the last few minutes of the exam to destroy an obstacle that yielded no numerical reward. Was it efficient? No. Was it rational? No, but I couldn't leave her. Niko's voice in his head was conflicted. You saved the girl. Good. But you broke your arm doing it. Bad. If there had been a second enemy, you would have been dead, Izuku. Inko shrieked, snapping him out of his trance. It's here. The letter from Yue. She slammed the envelope onto the table. It was thick, heavy, and stamped with the Yue crest in red wax. Izuku stared at it. He felt the same way he felt before a sparring match with Niko, cold, focused, heart rate slowing down to a rhythmic thrum. I'll take it to my room, Izuku said. He walked into his room, a shrine to All Might, though now mixed with anatomical charts and diagrams of joint locks. He sat at his desk and tore the envelope open. A metal disc slid out. It projected a hologram. I am here. All Might's face, in his muscle form, filled the room. As a projection. All Might bellowed. Young Midoriya. You've been waiting. Sorry for the delay, but there was much debating among the judges. Izuku leaned forward. First, the written exam. You passed with flying colors. An analytical mind is a weapon, and yours is sharp. Get to the point, Izuku muttered, tapping his fingers on the desk. The practical exam. All Might continued. You scored 60 combat points. A respectable score. You decimated the 3-pointers with terrifying efficiency. Izuku let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. He passed. However, All Might raised a finger. A hero course that only looks at violence is not a hero course at all. We look for those who inspire. Those who save. The video shifted. It showed the control room footage. The 0-pointer falling. Izuku screaming in the air. You sacrificed your body to save a competitor when there was no profit to be gained. All Might's voice dropped an octave, trembling with pride. That is the essence of a hero. And you weren't the only one who noticed. A clip played of Uraraka negotiating with President Mike, asking to give her points to Izuku. This girl tried to advocate for you, All Might said. But there was no need. Because in the hero course, the screen flashed. Combat points, 60. Rescue points, 60. Total, 120. This is a job where you risk your life to turn lip service into reality. All Might shouted. Izuku Midoriya. You passed with the highest score in the exam. Come, young man. This is your Hero Academia. The hologram faded. Izuku sat in the dark. 120 points. He had crushed it. He looked at his hand. The hand that Niko had trained to break rocks. The hand All Might had entrusted with the power to break the sky. Infinite potential, Izuku whispered. A slow, feral grin spread across his face. Okay. Let's see if they can handle me. Part 3. The Azura in the Blazer. April arrived with a storm of cherry blossoms. Izuku stood before the massive gates of UA High. The gray blazer felt foreign on his shoulders, restrictive compared to his usual loose GI or tank tops. He adjusted the red tie, which he had tied poorly. He walked through the halls, his gait silent and predatory out of habit. He found the door 1A. It was huge, designed for giants. Intimidation tactic, Izuku noted. Subtle psychological pressure before you even enter. He slid the door open. Get your feet off the desk. Ha! You trying to tell me what to do, Four Eyes? The noise hit him instantly. Ida Tenya was chopping the air in front of Katsuki Bakugo. Katsuki was leaning back, feet on the pristine wood, looking like he owned the place. Izuku stepped in. Katsuki froze. His eyes snapped to the door. Deku, Katsuki growled. He took his feet off the desk, sitting up straighter. The memory of the sludge villain, and the exam, was still fresh. He looked at Izuku not with dismissal, but with wariness. Good morning, Katsuki, Izuku said flatly. He walked to his assigned seat behind the explosive boy. You! Ida marched over. Midoriya! I must apologize. I misjudged you at the exam. You perceived the true nature of the test while I was blinded by the surface rules. I am Ida Tenya. I know, Izuku said, putting his bag down. You're loud. Good kinetic chain in your running, though. You strike with the ball of your foot. Ida blinked. Thank you. It's him. Uraraka popped up at the door. The curly-haired boy. You got in. I knew you would. That punch was amazing. Pow. She threw a mock punch. Izuku nodded to her. Uraraka. Thanks for speaking up for me with the judges. How did you know about that? Logic, Izuku lied. He couldn't explain the hologram. And thanks. Suddenly, the noise in the room died. A yellow caterpillar rolled into the doorway. A man in a sleeping bag lay on the floor, sipping a juice pouch. He stood up, unzipping the bag to reveal a disheveled man in black. It took you 8 seconds to shut up, the man said, his voice dry and tired. Time is limited. You kids aren't rational enough. He pulled a gym uniform out of his bag. I'm your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shota. Put these on and meet me on the grounds. Part 4. The Quirk Apprehension Test. The P grounds were expansive, the dirt packed hard. The class of 1A stood in their blue gym uniforms. A Quirk Apprehension Test? Uraraka asked. What about orientation? The ceremony? Here at UA, we're not tethered to traditions, Aizawa drawled. I need to know what you can actually do. The middle school tests forbid quirk usage. They're irrational. They don't show your true potential. He tossed a softball to Katsuki. Bakugo. You finished first in the entrance exam, technically second, but Aizawa ignored rescue points for this speech. How far could you throw in middle school? 67 meters. Try it with your quirk. Katsuki walked to the circle. He stretched his arms. He glared at Izuku for a split second before winding up. Die! Boom! The ball rocketed into the sky, propelled by a massive explosion. 705.2 meters, Aizawa read from his device. The class gasped. 700 meters? That looks so fun. We can use our quirks as much as we want? Aizawa's expression darkened. The air temperature seemed to drop. Fun? He whispered. You have 3 years to become heroes. You think it's going to be fun? You think the villains are having fun? He looked at them with bloodshot eyes. Right. Let's make this interesting. The student who ranks last in total score will be judged to have zero potential and will be expelled immediately. Expelled? The class erupted in protest. It's the first day. That's unfair. Izuku stood silently in the back. He adjusted his gloves. Unfair? Izuku thought. Niko threw me off a waterfall when I was 8 to teach me how to swim. This is nothing. Natural disasters are unfair, Aizawa said. Villains are unfair. It is your job to correct that unfairness. Now, show me what you've got. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Ida stepped up against a girl with frog attributes, Ajiri. Engine boost. Ida roared. Time, 3.04 seconds. Next up, Izuku vs. Bakugo. Don't lose, Deku, Bakugo hissed. Red eat. Go. Bakugo used explosions to propel himself. Boom boom boom. Time, 4.13 seconds. Izuku didn't use one for all. He didn't need to risk breaking his legs for a sprint. He assumed the flame kata stance. Low center of gravity. Weight on the toes. Flash fire. He exploded off the line using pure muscular torque and a rhythmic footwork pattern that minimized ground friction. He was a blur of green and blue. Time, 4.50 seconds. He skidded to a stop. TCH, Bakugo spat. Still slow. But the class was whispering. He didn't use a quirk. He's that fast just by running? Aizawa noted it on his clipboard. No quirk usage. Physical conditioning is S tier. But speed alone isn't enough. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku took the dynamometer. Adamantine kata, iron fingers. He focused. He visualized the muscles in his forearm turning into steel cables. He squeezed. Crack. The machine whined. 580 kilograms. Next to him, a large boy with multiple arms, Shoji, scored 540 kilograms. Shoji stared at Izuku's hand. Do you have a strength enhancer quirk? Something like that, Izuku murmured, shaking out his hand. Test 3, standing long jump. Izuku stood at the line. If I use 5% OFA in my legs, I can clear the sandbox. He channeled the power. Green lightning flickered. Jump, he soared. He cleared the sandbox entirely. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. There it is. The power from the exam. But he's hesitating. Test 4, side steps. Flame kata, phantom pace. Izuku moved side to side so fast he created an afterimage. It looked like there were 3 of him. Mineta, the great boy, rubbed his eyes. How is he doing that? Part 5, the ball throw. This was it. The final test. Izuku walked to the circle. He held the ball. He knew he was doing well physically. But Aizawa wasn't looking for athletes. He was looking for heroes. He needed to show he could use his quirk effectively. The problem is regulation, Izuku thought. If I use 100%, I break my finger. If I use nothing, I get 60 meters. He looked at Aizawa. The teacher was watching him like a hawk. I have to show him potential. Izuku activated one for all. He felt the power flood his arm. 100%. He prepared to snap his finger at the last second to minimize damage to the rest of the arm, a technique he had theorized called the Delaware. Smash. He wound up. Smash. He threw the ball. There was no boom. There was no wind pressure. The ball flew. 46 meters. It landed with a pathetic thud. Izuku stared at his hand. The power had vanished right at the point of release. It was cut off. I erased your quirk, a voice drawled behind him. Izuku turned. Aizawa stood there, his hair floating, his scarf defying gravity. His eyes glowed red. That entrance exam was definitely not rational, Aizawa said. Even a kid with immense power is useless if he breaks himself every time he uses it. I saw the medical report. You survived because of your muscle density, but you still broke the bone. Aizawa stepped closer. The intimidation was palpable. You can't save anyone if you're a liability. When you're incapacitated, who saves you? Izuku looked at the teacher. He didn't look scared. He looked calculating. Your Eraserhead, Izuku said. The underground hero. So you know me. Aizawa blinked, his hair falling back down as he deactivated his quirk. Good. Then you know I don't waste time. I'm returning your quirk. You have one more throw. Get it over with, then pack your bags. Izuku stood in the circle. He held the ball again. The class was watching. He's gonna get expelled, someone whispered. He can't control it, Bakugo muttered. Izuku closed his eyes. He thinks I'm reckless. He thinks I'm a glass cannon. Niko taught me that a weapon that hurts the user is a bad weapon. But one for all isn't a weapon yet. It's an untamed beast. How do I tame it? The adamantine kata protects the body. The redirection kata controls the flow. I don't need to use the whole arm. I don't need to break the bone. Izuku opened his eyes. He took a stance. It wasn't a baseball pitcher's stance. It was a martial arts stance. Feet wide. Hips low. He channeled one for all. Not into his arm. Into the tip of his index finger. Focus. 100% in one point. Reinforced the phalanx bones with indestructible. He wound up. He started the throw using pure mechanics. A whip-like motion of the hips and shoulder, water kata. As his arm came forward, Aizawa prepared to erase it again, but stopped. He saw the boy wasn't glowing all over. Just the fingertip. At the exact moment of release, Izuku snapped his finger. Smash. The sound was like a gunshot. A focused shockwave blasted the dust away from the circle. The ball didn't fly, it vanished. It broke the sound barrier instantly. Izuku winced. His finger was purple. It throbbed. But it wasn't shattered. The indestructible reinforcement had held the bone together against the explosive exit of force. The class looked up, mouths open. Beep. Aizawa looked at his device. His eyebrows shot up into his hairline. He turned the screen to the class. 805.3 meters. Higher than Bakugo. Izuku stood in the circle. He clenched his fist. The pain was sharp, but manageable. He turned to Aizawa. His eyes were burning with a green intensity that matched the lightning. He lifted his bruised, shaking hand. I can still move, sensei, Izuku said, his voice cold and steady. He smiled. A terrifying, confident smile that reminded Bakugo of the man in the park 10 years ago. Is that rational enough for you? Part 6. The Grudge and the Ghost. The silence was broken by a roar. DKU. Katsuki Bakugo exploded forward. He didn't care about the test. He didn't care about the teacher. You bastard! You told me you were quirkless. You've been lying to me for 10 years? He was fast. His right palm was glowing, ready to blast Izuku's face off. Izuku didn't flinch. He watched the approach, right foot heavy. Shoulders committed. He's emotional. He's sloppy. I told you, Katsuki, Izuku whispered. Bakugo lunged. Izuku didn't use a quirk. He stepped in. Redirection kata, change of scenery. He caught Bakugo's wrist with his left hand, stepping inside the guard. He used his own hip as a fulcrum. He didn't oppose Bakugo's momentum, he amplified it. He flipped the explosive boy. Bakugo's world spun. He slammed into the concrete backfirst. Hard. Wham. Izuku stood over him, holding Bakugo's arm in a lock that would snap the elbow if he applied an ounce more pressure. Stop telegraphing your right hook, Izuku said. Suddenly, white cloth wrapped around Izuku's neck. Aizawa's capture weapon. That's enough, Aizawa said, his hair floating again. He was erasing both of them. Bakugo, stop acting like a child. Midoriya, release him. Izuku let go instantly. He stepped back, brushing dust off his uniform. Self-defense, sensei, Izuku said. Aizawa stared at Izuku. He saw the bruising on the finger. He saw the terrifying combat instincts. And he saw the result on the phone. This kid, he's not just powerful. He's a combat pragmatist. He fights like a veteran. We're moving on to the sit-ups, Aizawa grumbled. Stop wasting time. The rest of the tests passed in a blur. Izuku dominated the endurance run. He held his own in the sit-ups. At the end of the day, the results were projected. 1. Momo Yaoyorozu. 2. Shoto Todoroki. 3. Izuku Midoriya. 4. Katsuki Bakugo. 20. Minoru Mineta. Izuku was third. Without using his quirk for anything but the ball throw and the jump. By the way, Aizawa said, zipping up his sleeping bag. The expulsion thing was a lie. It was a logical ruse to draw out your upper limits. Way out? The class screamed. Yaoyorozu sighed. Of course it was. It was obvious. Izuku looked at Aizawa. No. It wasn't a lie. He would have done it if we were weak. I saw it in his eyes. He cut the chaff. Aizawa met Izuku's gaze. A small, creepy smile touched the teacher's lips. Welcome to UA, Aizawa said. Go get that finger fixed. Izuku grabbed his bag. As he walked away, he felt All Might watching from the corner of the building. He looked at his bruised finger. One finger, Izuku muttered. Next time, the whole hand. He walked out of the gates, the silhouette of a warrior against the setting sun. The hero of the inside had arrived.